Welcome back to TBD. Not the name of our podcast. We're still figuring out what our final name is, but we are still TBD. I'm Eddie Geller.
I'm Stephanie Vanos. I am a school board member for Orange County Public Schools, District 6, where everything clicks.
Sorry, I just feel like the people should know who you are. I mean, I think you're very important. You're very important to me. You're very important to the people of Orange County.
Oh, well, that's very sweet. But I want to be clear that I am here in an unofficial capacity. I'm here just as Stephanie Vanos, plain old Stephanie Vanos.
Plain old vanilla Stephanie.
Very normal, very boring.
But we love vanilla. So I don't think being vanilla is a bad thing, just to be clear. I think you know this, and I want the people listening to know. Like when we're doing this podcast, I feel like I'm always navigating, respecting you as an elected official, but also you're here unofficially, but also I want to respect you as a partner and not feel like I'm saying anything that as your boyfriend I might get in trouble for. Not that you're a person who gets mad at me a lot. I also want to make that clear.
Maybe you should just stop talking now. I feel like that's probably the best answer.
Yeah, you're probably right. But this is a podcast, and I think it's a audio medium, so talking is also part of it.
That's true. And we're here to talk today.
We are here to talk today.
We have the right vibes.
We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. It's been a busy weekend for us.
It's been a really busy weekend, and it's included a lot of travel.
Yeah, we've been all over the place. But one thing we did do here in Orlando was we went to the Canvas kickoff for Representative Dr. Anna V. Escamani. Tell us about the launch.
Hopefully our future Madam Mayor of Orlando. Yeah, so it was great. So Representative Escamani, she had her launch for running for Orlando Mayor. The election's actually not until November of 27. So we have time. But here in Orange County, man, we file early and we get to work early. We knock the doors, we talk to the people, we are out there. That's kind of the way we do things here. So very excited to kick that launch off with her. Also, LaVon Bracey Davis, our current representative, will be running for the seat, which was formerly Senator Geraldine Thompson's seat. So that election's coming up June 24th. And she has also a great person running in her seat who was her legislative aide for many years, Rashawn Young. So fantastic to support him too.
When you retire from the school board, you're termed out, we're talking 7 years from now. Do you think would you consider endorsing me for your seat? Is this, can I bring this up on the podcast?
We'll see. I'm going to be evaluating you on the podcast and see what you say about education, and then I'll make my determination.
Okay, but I want to put that early feeler out there. But you don't have to make your decision now. Like you said, you're going to evaluate and you're going to see. I had such a great time at this Canvas launch. One thing that is funny, and we were talking about this, is going to events with you and people just thinking I'm just someone beside you and just asking me to take pictures of you with them, which I think is very funny. And I'm always happy to take a picture of you with someone else or you with whoever. But it is just kind of this funny thing in which someone just like hands me a phone like, oh, can you take a picture with me and Stephanie?
Well, I think it was also kind of, so we walked in and we didn't have time for breakfast. I had actually just run 10 miles that morning with my best run partner, ever Jill, and I just didn't have time to eat. And so we walk in, we're like, okay, we need some food. And we saw they had Jeff's bagels. So delicious. Oh my gosh, if you haven't had Jeff's bagels, go get some. And so I feel like we spent the first hour like trying to make our way across the room to get to the bagels. And we finally get to the bagels and then we didn't quite get them because everything started and pictures were needed. And so ultimately at the very end, we were able to grab our bagel. But yeah, it was fun though. It was great we saw Senator Smith there. We saw Public Defender Melissa Vickers, and just some other great volunteers who show up every time. I mean, the room was packed.
Oh, it was full. Yeah. It's very full.
For an election that's so far away. I mean, people are ready to go. And I just love seeing that. That's why I love this community.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. And I think coming from Tampa, it's lovely for me to see this kind of cohesion, this kind of energy. Not that there's not energy in Tampa, and there's so many great activists and candidates in Tampa, but the vibes, to use that again, here in Orlando and the Orlando political and activist community is really heartening. So we went from Anna's launch to the track meet, the Florida State track, phrase it for me correctly.
Florida high school state track meet.
Thank you very much.
In Jacksonville.
Yes.
At University of North Florida. It was great. Man, talk about crowded. That was packed too, but it was so great to see high schoolers out there at the state meet, running their hearts out, and just the support they had too. I mean, it was that stadium was filled with people. I mean, it was pretty packed.
Yeah, there were so many people and so enthusiastic. And I don't go to a lot of high school sporting events, so it's been a while, but it was a wonderful experience, and the enthusiasm and just watching these runners and just thinking how much faster they are than I am, and how much they would smoke me in a race. But maybe that's my own just self-consciousness impeding my enjoyment of the process, but it was wonderful.
And you're never told to start running again. You know, that's the great thing about running. You can start anytime. Don't let anyone tell you can't because of knees or hips or all that. No, you can start running anytime. But I do want to give a special shout out. This is a point of personal privilege to the Boone track team who came in 5th, the girls Boone track team 5th for the 4x800. They were really trying to get in that top 8 and they ended up in 5th. And so that's amazing. They had such a great race. All the girls did such a great job. So shout out to the Boone Braves, 4x800.
Very excited. It was wonderful to watch them run. Then we went home and you were so kind. I put on this new album from my favorite band, one of my 2 favorite bands, I should say. This band from Canada, Propagandy, which I just have to say, I'm so excited to be talking about Propagandy on this podcast, 3 episodes into our existence. This is just so joyous. And you were wonderful because this is like punk rock, metal. Maybe I'll try and put a clip in, but I don't want Epitaph Records to issue some sort of takedown notice or us to get sued. So it's like maybe I can play like a 3-second clip of it or something like that.
Too risky.
Too risky.
Says the lawyer.
Too risky, says the lawyer. Wait, did you ever deal with like fair use, stuff like that? I mean,
no, but I know enough that we can't play them on here, but you can check it out. It was great. It was actually a nice way to end the day.
Should I sing it? Do you think that would be?
Go for it.
No, okay. We'll skip that part. But I am bummed because this band that I love had some plans to come play in Gainesville at this music festival called The Fest in, I believe it was October, had plans to play, and then canceled all their America dates. This happened a couple of weeks ago because, well, unknown reasons. They did not state explicitly, but essentially because it's assumed that they don't feel comfortable coming to America because they've been outspoken on a number of political issues, including Gaza, and a lot of folks speculate, and I think this is fair speculation, that they don't feel comfortable coming to America with what is happening with ICE, what is happening with the Trump administration, which I think is so disturbing and unnerving. I am both personally distraught to not get to see them, but even more distraught. We are now a country where an artist does not want to come perform their art because they think their speech is going to get them imprisoned or deport. I don't know. I mean, it's very disturbing. So, very upsetting.
I agree. First of all, I was looking forward to seeing them, but hearing that they weren't coming here because for political reasons, feels like we're not even in America. It feels like we're in some kind of like foreign, like authoritarian regime, right? Where you can't express your speech. Listen, I don't, whether they are speaking views that I agree with or whether they're speaking views I don't agree with, they are performing music, they are performing art. And the fact that they feel that they can't perform here is, I'm like outraged, and I don't even, the group is fine, but it's not like they're my favorite music. I'm just outraged on principle. Yeah, no, it's absolutely astonishing, in the worst way possible. And I wonder, I'm guessing not, but I wonder if someone like Kid Rock is feeling this same sort of pressure about his ability to do his music. I'm guessing not, but it would be nice if Kid Rock could go to other countries and maybe not come back to America. But here I am just taking shots at Kid Rock. But wait, before we move on, I want to talk about, before we listen to Propagandy, I got like the best gas station taco I've ever had in my life. It was so good. We left the meet. I was so just so hungry, which usually happens on long run days. I'm like, I just need some food. And we stopped at like a BP, and they had this truck in the back that had the most delicious tacos. I mean, they wouldn't give you your chips, but man, that chicken taco hit the spot. All right. So I went up to this taco place knowing I just kind of wanted a snack, and they had on their menu, they had nachos.
And they absolutely had salsa because you got some salsa with your taco. But I asked for chips and salsa, and they're like, we don't have chips and salsa. And I'm like, yes, you do.
Lies.
You have chips. You definitely have salsa, but they wouldn't sell it to me. So I don't think we remember their name, and people should go patronize them. I want people to patronize any small business that is making good food and seem like lovely people. But I am a little frustrated by that part.
Well, we got some good sushi later, so it's fine.
We did get some good sushi later. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about before we get into the show proper?
I think we need to talk about the Friday night travels.
Okay. I didn't want to force you into discussing this, but I'm happy to.
So Eddie is an improv performer.
Thank you.
Is that the right word?
I would the improviser, improv comedian.
Okay, improv comedian. We didn't practice this part, so that's why.
It's improv.
So every month we go back for a show that he does called Salute and Happy Days at the Commodore Theater in Tampa, Florida. And so we went back on Friday night. It was such a fantastic show.
It was a great show. The way this show works is for this specific show is we have a storyteller come to the Commodore. They get interviewed. And when I say storyteller, they are not necessarily a storyteller by profession, but we ask them questions and they talk about their history with Tampa. And we've had a lot of different folks, a lot of great authors and journalists come in. But we had this cookbook author, remind me her name?
Dahlia Colon. I sat next to her and she was wonderful.
She was absolutely fantastic. We bought a cookbook from her. She signed it. She was so sweet. She told some great stories. We had a lot of fun, did a lot of great scenes. But I think the part that we wanted to talk about was on our way to the theater. You were, I'm like making straight eye contact with me because I do not want to describe this the wrong way. You were not in the best of moods. You were kind of out of it a little bit. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's definitely fair to say because when I'm tired, I was so tired. I don't sleep enough during the week, especially during the week. And by the time I get to Friday, I'm so tired. And when I'm tired, I cannot regulate my emotions. So if you ever want to torture me, just don't let me sleep. And then,
no one torture.
I'll kind of come undone. I kind of come undone, but I was just not in the best mood. So Eddie noticed that I was not in a good mood. And rather being like, why are you in such a bad mood tonight? He says,
I said, I can tell that you are not in the vibes pocket right now because I was trying to find a way to describe the fact that you were not in a great mood, but I didn't want you to feel like I was attacking you for not being in a good mood and being like, why aren't you in a better mood before my show? So I was trying to be like, the vibes were off, but you were like not quite in the pocket of the vibes. So to me, it was the vibes pocket. So that is our new catchphrase is the vibes pocket.
And my immediate response was anger because it sounded like such a Gen Z thing to say that I felt like he heard it from one of his young coworker friends and just repeated it. So I was kind of mad about it. But then I found out he actually made it up. And then I had some respect. And now I kind of like being in the vibes pocket.
I think right now we are squarely in the vibes pocket. I do want to say, but also you might have been angry because you were not in the vibes pocket. So I think it's like it all kind of hooks in together. But anyway, thank you for joining me in the show. And even though you were not in the vibes pocket, you were a wonderful audience member, and it brings me great joy when you get to see the show.
Well, it put me in a great mood. Improv is funny, and it gets you out of your head, and it was great.
Well, I can't wait for you to get up on stage and start doing some improv.
Never.
Okay. So for today's show, we are going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about cuts to Medicaid, which are on the table, and things are happening this week. So a bit more national this week. There's an article that came out right before we started recording from the New York Times that we want to talk about called Has America Given Up on Children's Learning? And then lastly, we heard some comments from Dr. Oz that we just want to talk about that were just so odious. So that's kind of the run of the show for today. So why don't we just dive right in? Essentially, what is going on the national level is the Republicans, the GOP are putting together their tax plan. They're going to try and push it through Congress right now. And the outline for this tax plan had been sort of set forth at the end of February. And essentially what we're here to talk about is Republicans are trying to push through to make permanent the tax cuts from 2017. Not just that, but a whole host of other cuts that are going to essentially both expand the deficit, trillions of dollars, $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. And to pay for those cuts, they're going to have to cut from somewhere. And the cuts that they're looking at are about $880 billion. And those cuts, it seems like, are going to have to come from Medicaid, which is what we really kind of want to focus on today is, what is Medicaid for folks who don't know? What are these cuts going to mean and what we can do about it? So I want to throw to Steph to talk about Medicaid in general, what it is, why we're talking about it, why it's so important.
First of all, I want to start off by saying I'm not an expert in this area, but just in general, Medicaid is a joint federal and state program that provides health insurance for adults and children that have limited income and resources. And that can include things like nursing home care and personal care services. And this is in contrast to Medicare, which is federal health insurance for people 65 and older. So just so we are clear what we're talking about Medicaid, not Medicare.
Yes. No, thank you for that clarity. And there are so many folks who are listening probably are actually well-versed on it. Not that I love that we're talking through it and we're making that distinction, but there's definitely folks who are listening to that who have personal experience with it. I have personal experience. My nephew who has special needs is able to get care because of Medicaid. So if these cuts happen, there's going to be a lot of folks who feel this personally. Again, I count myself as one of those. A lot of people have stories about what's going to happen to them personally if these cuts are going to happen, the care that is going to fall through in their life, the family members or themselves who are not going to be able to have access to care. But there's a lot of this. And there's so many ways to look at this and the devastation. But a huge part of this is how it's going to affect education. And so that's definitely part of why I want to talk about this and throw back to you, Steph, about what these cuts to Medicaid, not only how it will affect people personally, but how about education and what this is going to mean for schools? Because people might not initially make that connection between cuts to Medicaid and how this is going to affect education.
Yeah, I agree. But I will say I can speak for Orange County because that's where we are. So cutting Medicaid will have a huge impact on our public schools. And I can tell you last year, Orange County Public Schools received over $7 million from Medicaid. And it really enables us to provide students with disabilities and students with special needs the care that they need. And that can look like things such as speech language therapy, occupational and physical therapy, behavioral and mental health services, some nursing services to students with specific healthcare plan needs. And it also includes reimbursement for transportation for students with IEP accommodations to and from school. So, cutting the reimbursement from Medicaid will really disproportionately impact our students with special needs who public school serves all students, and that includes our students with special needs. And so I am very concerned that if Medicaid is cut, that we are not going to be able to serve our students in the way that they deserve to be served and in a way that will enable them to learn.
It's just, and if I sound like I'm at a bit lost for words, the cruelty of this is hard to overstate. And when we say they want to pay for these cuts so they can give tax cuts to billionaires, it sounds glib, it sounds like a line, but it is actually true. I mean, by extending these 2017 tax cuts, just as an example, the richest 0.1% of taxpayers, those with incomes over $3.5 million a year, would receive an average annual tax cut of $314,000. So we want to pay for tax cuts for those folks and take away care and take away services from students, from individuals who need it most. I mean, I think this is what we're supposed to do as a society and as our government, is we pull together and we are doing our best to take care of folks, to provide healthcare, of course, education, to take care of folks when they need it, because that's what an advanced society, a functioning society does. And I think this is, speaks to their morality, these Republicans who want to make these cuts and feel like serving their donor class with more tax cuts and taking away care and services from those who need it most is just so fundamentally cruel. It's hard not to be just absolutely livid about this.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder, how do people not care about others? I mean, it's that basic. How do you teach that? I don't know that we can. But are there things we can do right now to prevent these cuts from happening? What do we do?
That's a great question, because now we are recording this. It is Sunday, May 11th. We actually have time to still make an impact. A lot of the Republicans, who are part of the decision makers who are, can be pushed one way or another, are in districts that are close enough to be swing districts. And so if they hear from enough of their constituents that say, no to these cuts to Medicaid, no to cuts to public education, that they can be persuaded to not follow through with these cuts. So there's a great website you can go to. We were watching a live from Rep AOC. So if you go to Ocasio-Cortez/Save Medicaid, you can find a letter that is already filled out that you can contact your representative. And especially if you live in those districts that are outlined on the website and you have that swing Republican representative, and for them to hear from you actually makes a big deal, because this bill is being marked up this week. It's not going to be your last time to make your voice heard on this, last time to stop it, but now is the time certainly to be getting in there. I would not wait, especially if you, like I said, if you are in one of those districts with that is a swing district with a Republican. We are fortunate enough here in Orlando's 10th district. We have a wonderful representative, Congressman Maxwell Alejandro Frost, who we know we can count on to fight these cuts. But again, if you are in one of these districts where you have one of these representatives, make your voice heard. That's OcasioCortez.com/Save Medicaid. And if you Google this too, you can find other places, but that is a resource that we know of that we've checked out and can give our thumbs up to.
And I think it's important just to remember, when it comes to Medicaid, when it comes to public education, these really should not be partisan issues. There are plenty of Republicans who support public education. There are plenty of Republicans who support our children who have special needs, who need these funds to be able to live and to be able to thrive in school. And so, I think when you're talking about Republicans, it's Republicans in Congress seem to be, in favor of this, but I don't think it's representative at all of our society and Republicans generally. I think these are important issues across party lines. So just wanted to add that.
No, and it's an important point to make. And the way Medicaid works actually is that a lot of red states get disproportionate federal funding from Medicaid, as opposed to wealthier blue states. A lot of folks from red states would suffer more from these cuts to Medicaid than folks from bluer states. So you're totally right. It is a nonpartisan issue. Of course, this is the GOP budget. These are Trump's tax cuts that they're trying to extend. So it's not like I always want to be so partisan, but this is what they're doing, and the stakes could not be higher, and there is still time to fight back. So I encourage you to check out the website. Encourage you to make your voice heard, and let's stop this thing.
People power.
People power. We love the people.
We love the people.
Next on our agenda, there was a interesting, provocative New York Times article, as I mentioned, that popped up right before we started recording. And it was by Dana Goldstein. And the title of the article from the New York Times, "Has America Given Up on Children's Learning?" And it says, "Politicians used to care about how much students learn. Now, to find a defense of educational excellence, we have to look beyond politics." So I wanted to bring this up, obviously, because I want to hear your take on this. But essentially, the thrust of the article is we've kind of lost our way from a 30,000-foot level nationally about where we're going with education. So much of what Trump is doing now is about trying to root out DEI. My eyes are rolling so hard to the top of my head. And to, quote, liberate our children from the Marxist lunatics and perverts who have infested our educational system. I mean, it is like, the quote is so laughable and also so disturbing. It's no question to me that Trump and the attempted shuttering of the Department of Education do not care about education for all across our country. But does the Democratic Party really have a vision for where we're going to go forward with education and innovating and finding ways to get where we were pre-COVID? So I kind of want to just throw to you and definitely you have some more specific questions, but do you think the title of this article, "Has America Given Up on Children's Learning," do you think that is a fair question, or do you think it's just provocative? What's your initial take?
I think it's an interesting question. I also want to point out the fact that you use innovative in your conversation and question to me. If you are a vendor that wants to get into public schools, use the word innovative, because I feel like every other word is innovative. We need to be innovative. We need innovative things. That's kind of the buzzword right now in public education.
I probably heard it from you, and now I'm, I'm just parroting it.
But so title, okay, has America given up on children's learning? I think when I hear this, I don't think just about Trump in the last 3 months. What I kind of take a step back, I look at really what has happened in education, particularly starting around COVID. And what I think about is the distraction of culture war issues in education. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of these extreme people who think that, our schools are too woke, or we're indoctrinating people, or whatever or the books are dangerous and we need to root out the books in the libraries. I think honestly we have spent a lot of our precious time defending and responding to these ridiculous and outrageous claims because we've been forced to. And I think it's true that has distracted and taken up a lot of time that we should have spent focusing on how are we strengthening our curriculum? How are we looking at the system as a whole to make sure that our children are learning deeply and they're learning well. They're learning foundational things in the elementary grades. We are instilling a love of learning so that they stay engaged as they go through middle school, which I think we're all scratching our heads figuring out how can we better serve our middle school students. And then how do we carry that on into high school so that our children are showing up at school and they're not consistently absent. And so I think it has taken some of the focus off of that. I will say this, one of the things that we have focused on in the past couple of years, which I think is going to really impact and influence education in the future, is really focus on the science of reading, which is just sort of a summary, but an ongoing sort of body of research about how children best learn how to read. The science of reading is not a program. It's not one certain method. I think sometimes people get confused on that. It's really just a body of research that's ongoing, that is using good, evidence-based information on how children learn to read so that we can better teach them how to read. And I think that as we are understanding that better and we are implementing those strategies into school, I think that will really help build the foundation for our children's ability to read, to understand, to comprehend. And I think that will have a great impact on learning. Unfortunately, people want solutions to happen overnight, right? We want to put a new program in school and then the next year we see the results. And that's just not the way that these things work. So I think it will take a couple of years to see that. But I think that's one positive thing that has happened in the last couple of years that is really truly focused on how our children learn how to read.
I loved hearing that. And I was actually, before you even got to it, I was going to ask you if there's something you'd seen on the horizon that gets you excited about where we're going. And I'm glad you talked about the science of reading. One other thing that this article talks about, and I feel like we're probably, over the years of doing this podcast, it's probably going to get brought up a lot, is testing and our reliance on testing. Can you give us your take on where we are in the reliance of testing and the focus of testing in our schools these days?
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that I'm someone who thinks we are over-testing our children and that we are incorporating way too much of test prep into our schools. I think our schools are recognizing that. We actually just had a work session this past week in Orange County where we were talking about, how can we reduce testing in our schools and how can we think about maybe different or better ways to evaluate our teachers. The unfortunate thing is our teacher evaluation system is based on standardized tests. And so kind of how we need to rework that is something I think we need to take a serious look at, not just as district, but really as a state, and think about what's the best way to do that. One other thing I also noticed in this article, they spent a lot of time actually talking about screens.
Yeah.
And how you can't learn if you're distracted by screens. It talks about addictive technology. It mentions how many children as young as 8 are spending an hour of the school day on screens.
Goodness
which
gracious.
Is bananas to me. And that reading comprehension develops much better when children are reading on paper and writing on paper. And also just the point of developing a mature attention span, which is so critical for learning as you go on. If you don't have an attention span, as you progress through academics, you're not going to be able to learn if you don't have the ability to read longer works of literature, if you don't have the ability to sit through a complex math problem, if you don't have the wherewithal to think critically about issues in social studies or civics or, important current events, or even science when you're thinking about going through and doing, science experiments. You need to have an attention span. You need to have an ability to stay focused for a long period of time. And I think one thing with screens is we have made it harder for children to do that because they're focused on, short attention span, quick learning, and just also the distraction of screens.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine having had access to screens in such a ubiquitous manner. I mean, in really any manner when I was going to school, and I'm sure same for you. And knowing how distracting screens are in my day-to-day life, and we are adults, and I think we as adults struggle with our addiction to screen. And I know this is a debate that I'm wading into that has been going on for years, but how difficult that must be for children to resist the pull of a screen when they are at such a critical point when they have to, as you said, develop these skills for attention and focus. And yeah, it seems, in hindsight, it feels like a no-brainer to pull screens away from them, but I'm glad this is a thing that we are having more discussions about and reconsidering how much screen time and usage children should be having.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually had a work session a couple of weeks ago where we specifically talked about this and talked about how, the district did work hard to ensure that every child had a screen. We had one-to-one devices, and really by COVID, which we were one of the early districts to have that. And we can go back and talk about whether that was, the right or the wrong decision. But now we're sort of at a place where we're realizing, I don't know. Is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? How do our children learn best? And so, I look at this article and I think about, there are some tough questions to ask. There are some things we need to think about. We think about decisions that we've made in the past and, not to be trapped by what has been done, but to think about how do we move forward in the future. And I think, we also cannot overlook some of the basic things like, number one, funding, right? Mm-hmm. We can't improve education if we don't have the resources to do it. So we need to make sure that we are funding our schools appropriately, that we are, focusing on making sure that our children's mental health is in a good place. And I think testing kind of plays into that, right? If we're over testing children, we're putting so much emphasis on testing. How do we sort of decrease that? And, how do we ensure our children are taking care of themselves? So I'll say, such as sleeping a little bit more in the morning for our high schoolers. But all to say, I think there are a lot of things that we can look at. And I think there are a lot of things that we can do better. I am a huge proponent of public schools. I went to public schools K through 12. My children are all in public schools. I believe in our public schools. That is why I'm a public school board member. I don't know why you would be a public school board member if you were not 100%, believe in schools and how we can make them the best they can be for our children. And in doing that, there are things that we can improve on for sure. And I think it's good to be asking those questions.
You mentioned mental health, and I think that is just so important for kids. And I know, one of the things that I struggled with was my own mental health and how much that was deprioritized for students and not given enough attention. But that actually makes me think of our last subject today, thinking about health, is someone who is definitely out of the vibes pocket, and that is Dr. Oz and the Make America Healthy Again and RFK Jr. and those ilk. So one thing listeners may or may not know is you and I think a lot about health and food and fitness. This is not the focus of this podcast, but this is a point in which it kind of intersects a little bit. So I just want to play this clip from Dr. Oz from a news interview that happened recently and just kind of break it down a little bit. So I'm going to play it right here, and then we'll kind of give our takes.
Addressing the fundamental reality that 70% of the money that CMS spends, and that's what Medicare, Medicaid, the exchanges, CHIP, 70% of the money we spend is on chronic illness, and we're not getting our money's worth. So for folks listening right now, it's your patriotic duty to be as healthy as you can, and it's our job to help you get there, make it easy to do the right things. At the same time, we've got to make wise decisions because we're stewards who have to protect the money for the population that Hubert Humphrey described.
It is your patriotic duty to be as healthy as you can. So grossed out by that statement. I wish the listeners could see your beautiful face scrunched up right now with how disturbed you are. When you hear that, what do you think?
I don't want anyone telling me what my patriotic duty should look like. first of all, and telling me that, my health is in any way related to a patriotic duty. And listen, this is coming from someone who actually is very interested in health. Most people would kind of consider me a little bit of a health nut. Like, I run most days of the week. I generally, enjoy lots of fruits and vegetables and what people might describe as healthy food. I also like my sweets too, but to hear someone tell me that it's my patriotic duty to be healthy is disturbing and sounds like we are in some kind of like Nazi regime.
It is so gross. And I think this is in a context of folks who want to make a registry of autistic individuals in America, which is so, I will say, eugenics coded, very, very disturbing. Again, to your point, what does being healthy look like according to the government? And if your BMI is too high, are you not being patriotic? And what does that mean if you're not being patriotic? What are the punishments you might face if you are not being patriotic enough? And how are they keeping track of that? I think this takes us down such a scary and dangerous road. And I'm not saying people, we shouldn't do what we can to take care of our bodies so we can be healthy, and so we can be healthy for ourselves, healthy for our family and our loved ones. And I think that's a good thing. But I think, again, when it is the government coming down and deciding who is and who is not healthy, I think this is a story we have seen before, and it does not end well.
Right. And I think there's a difference between saying, in general, we as a nation want to support ways to make sure that more of our communities have access to affordable fruits and vegetables and whole grains and things like that. But when we start saying that health is a national interest and we look at it at a personal, individual level, I immediately think of, what about a pregnant woman? Are people going to start judging her based on what she's eating or what she's doing or what types of exercise she's doing? Is it too much? Is it too little? Can she not do this? Can she not do that? Can she not dye her hair? Can she not, wear this perfume? Can she not eat this food? I mean, I think we can get down some really scary, scary roads if we are looking at, health being a national interest at the individual level.
Exactly. And these are also the people who are, before they came into office, peddling snake oil and vitamin pills and all this other bullshit, and defunding science, defunding research, and of course, trying to delegitimize vaccines. I mean, these are the people I trust the least on health. And again, they just nominated for Surgeon General a health influencer. And I believe she is a doctor, but her main qualification, she is a health influencer in the Make America Healthy Again movement. I mean, these people are quacks, and they are going to start looking at us, making sure we're healthy enough to make sure we're doing our patriotic duty. And I am so disturbed by these people. And I want to talk about it because I think it's so important to talk about. And this is something, you and I are thinking about our health. I know you were saying people might consider you a health nut. Hopefully that is a non-tree nut health nut, because as listeners may know, I am very allergic to tree nuts, but I have my own issues. I grew up a fat kid. I have lost a lot of weight, and so, which I have mixed feelings about. We could talk about that another time. So I think a lot about the food that goes into my body, what I eat, all that stuff. And like I said, I have some mixed feelings about that, but I would never want to impose my body or how I live, how I eat, how I exercise onto someone else. I certainly do not want the government imposing that on people. And we're not talking about the food industry. They're focusing this on like, what are you doing and what do you look like? And are you being healthy enough? And not taking a look at like, what are we subsidizing? What are these food corporations doing, making hyper palatable food and making gobs of profit off of food that I would not consider like morally bad in any reason. We love our snacks, we love our sweets, but I think there's a fair conversation to be had about our food system that is, I think, very different from your patriotic duty is to be healthy. And this is the last thing I'll say, because I know I've been going on for a minute. Talking about, chronic diseases and yeah, some chronic diseases, are related to some lifestyle things, but so much chronic disease has nothing to do with how you're living your life, nothing to do with how you're running or how much you're eating. I just read this heartbreaking article from a dear friend of mine about his mother who is dealing with Alzheimer's and has just wraparound care that I'm sure is very costly. And I am so glad she and my friend's family are able to, access that care. But that has nothing to do with how she ate or how she lived her life. So this is all just such garbage, and these people are so dangerous.
I think you make such a great point you make many great points.
Very sweet.
But such a great point about we're not even looking at the food industry and we're not even looking at what's happening there. That's such an important factor. And I was also going to bring up just the point about chronic disease. And then also I think the last point in there that really bothered me was it talks about we have limited resources and we need to make wise decisions about how to use our money. Like what the F does that mean? Who's deciding that? Who's deciding who's worthy of getting medical insurance or medical care? It's that to me is scary to put, Donald Trump and his honestly quacks in charge of deciding who gets medical care and medical insurance. So no thanks.
Well, that finishes it up for us today. We got a very exciting show next. This week was very exciting. I don't want to undersell how great this podcast was that you just listened to it.
Because we were in the vibes pocket today.
We were so squarely in the vibes pocket for the entire podcast. But we have our first guest coming up next week, so I'm very excited for that. So make sure you're subscribed. Rate us wherever you listen to your podcast, iTunes, Spotify. Can you rate podcasts on Spotify? I don't know. But if you can, send Spotify an email. Just tell them how much you like this podcast, TBD. And once we have a name, you can tell them that as well. But subscribe, rate us on iTunes. And if you have questions, I'm Geller Ed on Instagram. You are?
I am Vote Vanos.
So send us your feedback. Send us your questions. Don't tell us how to eat, though. Those comments are probably not going to be welcome, even if you're well-meaning. So that's it for us this week. Any parting words to the fans?
Should we go get some Gideon's cookies right now?
Oh my gosh. That sounds so delicious. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Eddie.
I'm Stephanie.
Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you at the next one.
Bye.
Bye.